Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Taylosive EV live on YouTube. And it's no longer just an Elon tweet. It's no longer Martin Viecha from Investor Relations talking about shareholders. We finally have an official invite image sent out. I'm using my phone actually as the camera right now, so I apologize. I can't hold it up for you. What can I do? I can full screen this and kind of turn it around. But we've officially received the invite. I have not been personally invited, although I did submit my proof of shareholder proof that I'm a shareholder to Tesla. So I have entries, like they could potentially draw my name. I have not received the email. I apologize if that's what you were hoping for. I was still hoping for it, and I'm not typically an event guy, but the Tesla Semi is something that I've been following so closely for so many years. It's changed a lot. It's been delayed a lot. And I'm just so incredibly happy that it's finally real. Hey, TK, welcome to the stream. That they're finally doubling down with only 2 weeks to go. 2 weeks, right? Only 2 weeks. And they're straight up sending out the invite saying December 1st, Giga Nevada. So that was, I guess, the new piece of information, is that Martin Viecha and Elon Musk said that first deliveries were going to be on December 1st, but they didn't say where. We still don't know exactly what time of day, but most Tesla events are usually around 6 or 7 p.m. Pacific. So I'm expecting a fairly late in the evening event, but yes, ZXZ brought up the exact same thing I tweeted about. That's basically the exact thing I replied to the tweet with, was that the Semi has this bright red seatbelt, which is such a great accent to complement the very black interior. But it seems like all of the Semis are black interior, white exterior. As far as all the sightings have gone, I've not seen any other color. But hi, Masson Hunt. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. I'm much more excited now that I know that there's going to be a new Tesla vehicle hitting the roads within 2 weeks. This is such a rare thing, right? Like, we haven't gotten a new Tesla model since March of 2020, and knowing that the event is at Giga Nevada means that I'm really excited to see how many they actually deliver. And now that they're hyping it up through their official Twitter, right? This is no longer just Elon pumping the Semi or announcing something through, replies, as Elon often announces things. Genuinely, I I know this might be a controversial subject, but I would kind of like Elon to just spend all his time on Twitter and SpaceX, and just kind of let Tesla do their thing. I don't know. I feel like Elon Mason, sorry, it's pronounced a little differently. My parents are weird. Sorry, that's okay. It's my bad. Mason, sorry. But yeah, I kind of want Tesla to just keep doing their things, especially during the last earnings call. I felt like there were a lot of great people at the call that had these things to say, but Elon felt this desire to keep cutting in and keep interrupting them. And I wanted to hear Zach and Drew and everybody else talk. I wanted to hear everybody talk about the Semi or the batteries or the ramp, but Elon wanted to keep doubling down and oversimplifying things, which is weird to me because Elon is so invested in so many complex fields, and I know he's a genius in so many different markets, whether it's rocket engineering or AI software development. He's super interested in all these different fields, and he can hold a conversation and carry a subject with all of these advanced engineers. And yet he keeps wanting to insist on these earnings calls to dumb it down to, so it's essentially battery revenue. It just takes over the call. And I'm like, can we just let Tesla do their thing now? Can we let just Tesla be? I don't know if Elon really has much experience with knowing when to quit, knowing when to give up on something. Not that Tesla, he would be abandoning them to the point where they don't exist anymore. I think that just Elon has helped bring Tesla to success, and brought a lot of growth and brought a lot of value to the company, to the point now where I'm like, I trust the people already there. I trust the people that are there full time, not going in different directions between companies. And I think Tesla will be fine with just Elon in charge. But yeah, this was I was just thinking about that, Michael. He said that Sawyer Merritt tweeted that Elon has a CEO replacement in mind. I wouldn't say that was a official, because this, let me read the headline again. It was a little weird. Tesla board James Murdoch said Elon Musk has, in the last few months, identified someone as a potential successor in the role. I think you might be extrapolating that a little bit too far to say he's picked a replacement. It's like a board member has said that in the last few months he's identified someone as a potential successor in the role. But they didn't say the name. And he was testifying in a trial over Musk's 2018 Tesla pay. So Elon has never said he might imminently be leaving Tesla. He also said Elon has not suggested to anybody else that he is going to quit. So yeah, I don't think Elon's planning on leaving personally. I just don't think it's a bad idea. With how much stuff he's got going on in his life right now and how Tesla's doing, I don't think it would be bad at all. And I also think that there's a lot of from my own experience as a Tesla owner, I felt a lot of negative stigma surrounding, like, Elon is controversial, and Elon is not afraid to share his hot takes on so many different subjects. And again, I don't think that matters ultimately for the product. Like, that doesn't bother me, the fact that Elon said a lot of things I don't agree with. For the same reason that I went to the theater this summer and I watched Top Gun Maverick, and I loved it. I love Top Gun. Does that mean I support Scientology? No. Oh my God, no. Like, seriously, I think Tom Cruise has some very questionable personal life decisions that I definitely don't agree with. But I can separate the product from the creator. I can separate the art from the artist. I don't interweave the two because I think that the world would be a lot more complicated place if you insisted that you can only buy products or use services from companies that you agree with politically or align with. That's going to be a big mess if you try to live life that way. I'm calling... Oh, the Tesla Barbarian's in the chat. Good to see you. He says, I'm calling it now, brother. You and I are both going to get the invite to the semi-delivery event. Hashtag see you there. That would be so much fun. I really want that to be true, but you're getting my hopes too high now. Now I feel worried. Now I feel like it's not going to happen. I'm going to get disappointed. Maybe we should just camp outside the event. We won't be invited. We'll just camp outside. But yeah, good to see you again. Good to have you chatting in. Rob Carr says, hello from Australia. Tesla truck looking like the future. I know. This is official. And it does give me, honestly, a little bit of hope that they actually delivered, and they're officially stating that the first semis will have a 500-mile range. That makes me feel a little bit more hopeful that the Cybertruck will not compromise on the range. But I'm trying not to get too much hype because I do think financially and production ramp-wise, it makes so much sense to compromise with the Cybertruck range and make something around 310, 320. But we'll see. We'll see if they actually do that. I'm surprised that the semi-truck came out before the Cybertruck. It was always intended to be fair. I'll never forget it. It was the coolest event possibly I had ever seen. It was amazing. Like, it was back in, I think it was September of 2017. And I didn't watch the whole thing. I was following Tesla. I was interested in Tesla at the time, but I can't remember what I was doing. I think I was mountain biking with my dad that night, or I was going out to dinner with some friends or something. And I came back home late at September in 2017 during the semi event, and I saw that it was live. I was like, oh, that's right. Because originally, before the event actually went live, I was like, it's a semi truck. And Tesla was kind of in their early ramp up days. This was right in the middle of the Model 3 ramp. So back at that time, new Tesla unveilings didn't feel that rare. You know, I was like, oh yeah, they did the Roadster, then they did the S and the X and the 3, and now they're doing a semi truck. But I was like, a semi truck? What's the big deal? Like, you know, I'm not gonna drive one of those. But I turned on the event, and I didn't watch it from the very beginning, but it was still live at the time, and I think I was with a friend at the time. We turned it on, put it on the TV, and they were talking about the range. And they were saying how one of them was, you know, going to go up to 500 miles on a charge. And I was like, what? I was like, how could... I'd never heard of that before. At that time, that was like unheard of, that an EV could go that far on a charge. That was back in the days when we were more convinced and sold on the concept of just, what was it? That EVs are limited by demand and not that many people are buying them, but we're waiting until the range is good enough and the price is low enough, and then we'll start adopting. I had a very dated mindset. I don't agree with that mindset anymore, But at the time, my mindset was, well, EVs will sell a lot better when they all have 400, 500 miles of range. But as of right now, Tesla can barely get an EV over 300 miles. That was back in 2017. They didn't have any EV. I'm pretty sure Lucid was not even close to production. And there was not even really, I don't even think the Rivians were unveiled yet. Rivian wasn't a thing. Lucid was in like fantasy prototype land where they were like, yeah, maybe one day we'll release a car. But yeah, the prototypes Lucid had were very, very early and not production ready at all. But I think that's what caught my attention the most, was like Elon was presenting that semi, and I just couldn't wrap my brain around the idea that not only does it get 500 miles of range, but it's a truck with like a big truck with a huge payload, and it's getting 500 miles. I was like, how is this possible? It was quite mind-blowing at the time. If you knew the context of the EV environment, Tesla was insane for that event because, for one, the semis looked really, really cool. I remember, I think, seeing the teaser invites. They were posting it on Twitter, where it was just kind of this 3D model shadow of like a semi-truck getting closer and closer to the camera. And I was like, what the heck? That's weird. But once I actually saw them in like the centered driver position, in the two displays, like two Model 3 displays around the steering wheel, I was just like, what? It was the coolest thing. And then during the event, they were showcasing like, this has 4 motors. They've changed that. It's 3 now. But at the time, they were like 4 motors that can do 0 to 60 in 5 seconds on a semi-truck. And I was like, that's faster than so many cars, and yet it's an entire semi. And yeah, the range really blew my mind. And I don't know. It was just a very like Steve Jobs style event because there was so much misconceptions and so many preconceived doubts surrounding electric vehicles at the time. Not that big a EV community had formed yet on Twitter or YouTube. There's just not that many. Like probably half of the YouTube channels that you watch now for EV coverage didn't exist, or at least half, maybe more. And because, you know, like barely anybody even had a Model 3 at that time. In September of 2017, I think they had only, no, I can't remember when the Model 3 delivery event was. I gotta find it. Where was it? When was that? Model 3 first deliveries. I know it was 2017, but the first delivery was July 7th to Musk himself. And then the first 30 production units were delivered at, I wonder if Elon still has that Model 3. I'm guessing no. So yeah, okay. Model 3s had just started delivering, but it was like only to employees as far as I could remember. It was not that many like actual consumers. So basically the only people that had Teslas were people that could afford the Model S and X, which were, you know, $70,000, $80,000 cars. Camp outside the event. I'm down. Both our Model 3s have camp mode for a reason. Yeah. I better check with the wife on that one before I commit to it. But yeah, that does sound fun. Regardless of what happens, I'll fingers crossed for an actual event. I don't want security to get after me. I don't know how far you are from Giga Nevada. I won't say how far I am, but that would be fun. Kind of hard to imagine Tesla without Elon. I'm sure they'd be fine though. I know, but people said the same thing about Apple and Steve Jobs. And Apple blew up after Steve Jobs died. You know, they not because he died, but like Tim Cook took over and ran the company very successfully. The stock has blown up. The revenue has grown. The shipments have grown. He's arguably maybe less innovative and maybe doesn't pioneer as many things, but he still has taken the company to new heights and to extreme success. And I feel like Tesla needs their Tim Cook at this point, you know? Like Tesla needs someone that isn't about, you know, insane, innovative design or giant, you know, radical rethinking of things, but more someone who's approaching sustainability. Like, how do we keep this going? How do we increase value, and how do we increase market, and how do we, it's just like sustainability, not so much like, Elon, I think, is great with startups. He's very good at like burning the midnight hour, working overnight, sleeping at the facilities, whether it's the factory or the headquarters. That's what he's doing right now at Twitter. He's just working all night, sending all the employees emails saying, if you're not willing to put in hardcore work, then just leave. You know, only stay here if you're really, really passionate and you're going to work extra hard and go the extra mile. I think he's great in dire circumstances where things are tough. And I just don't think Tesla's in dire circumstances, and I don't think things are that tough. I know they have challenges, but I just don't think they need him anymore. And there's a lot of negative stigma surrounding Elon that a lot of Tesla owners put up with, including myself. Is like, I love this vehicle, and I'm very happy with this car, but anytime I pick up my father-in-law or I pick up a relative in my Model 3 from the airport or something, or I just take them for a ride, then they start asking me questions about Elon. Why did Elon say this? Or what do you think of Elon Musk? It's like, why do we have to keep... why is that such a thing? And that association won't necessarily go away if he leaves, but it would start the conversation. I think there'd be a lot more people comfortable with the idea of buying a Tesla if they knew that it's not like directly correlating to Elon maybe as much. I'm in North Carolina, 2,500 miles away from Giga Nevada, but if I get the invite, I will 100% be there streaming live. Wow, nice. That's commitment. You go a lot further than I do. Wait, there's innovation at Apple? Yeah, I mean, it's probably not as flashy or as memorable as the innovation that was around for Steve, but it depends on your definition of innovation, I guess. Like, a lot of people would consider what Steve Jobs did innovative, but you could argue that at the time it was kind of a combination of pre-existing technologies. And I would argue Tim Cook was around for AirPods and the Apple Watch and the AirTags, which are just reiterations of things that already existed, but they got them right. They got the core fundamentals of them right. And same kind of thing with Steve Jobs. You know, he didn't invent touchscreens. He didn't invent the smartphone. He didn't invent the camera on the phone or software on a phone, but he got the right recipe and figured out how to make it simple and intuitive and easy to understand. And that's why most people credit the iPhone as being like the first real smartphone. That's at least the first phone that kind of defined what smartphones would be. VW got rid of the thing I like about them. Herbert Dreiss, yeah. That's right, I forgot he's not there anymore. But yeah, you could argue there's a lot of innovation going on with the Apple Silicon right now. Like, the chips are industry leading in regards to their efficiency and their performance per watt. No one really is touching that. I wouldn't be able to produce as much content as I do if it weren't for Apple and their custom chips. Charging the Apple Pencil by plugging it in the bottom using a cord. Yeah. No, I will not defend that one at all. I've done plenty of rant videos on that, but that's for the tech channel. But I just remember being so impressed with the semi event because it was breaking so many stigmas about EVs all at the same time. It was like, here's how much it can save, and it's going to have the software, and you're going to control it through your phone. And at the time they said production starting in 2019. Obviously that didn't happen, but it was such an amazing, mind-blowing moment where they basically said, okay, you can order the Tesla Semi on the website. It starts at 150 grand, which is a fair price for what you get. And they like pretended to wrap up the event. The lights go down, the cameras pull back, and then you just hear this electric motor whine, right? You just hear this, and then they play the animation on the projector screen, and it goes, they've gone to Plaid. And then the back door drops down with light and smoke out of the back of the semi truck, and it starts playing the, and it was just, the music was amazing. All the lights went dark, and then there was one light, and then the Roadster just slowly pulls out, and everyone loses their minds, and it gets up to the front of like the strip and totally floors it, and then he just blows everyone's expectations out of the water with what an EV can be, and says this does 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds, 600 miles of range, beats supercars, super aerodynamic, and then they were taking people rides in the Roadster. Now, the event got progressively more disappointing as time went by, because obviously the Roadster didn't come out, the Semi didn't come out, but in that moment, when you were watching it live, and I'm sure the same feelings were had for the people that were actually there at the event, it was such a crowd pleaser. Oh my God, it was the most satisfying thing to be like, we're watching an event for a semi-truck, but then the coolest Roadster ever pulls out the back of the semi-truck and breaks all of these records, becomes the fastest vehicle ever made. And now it's got a lot of living up to hype to do because of the Rimac Nevera, which I saw in the news exceeding 250 miles per hour and 0 to 60 in 1.8 seconds or something like that. So the Roadster is going to have to be quite groundbreaking in order to beat everybody else. But ultimately, what an amazing event. What an exciting time to be a Tesla fan. That was definitely a big click moment for me of like, okay, Tesla's special. Tesla's not like every other company if they're willing to do these crazy things and have invite YouTubers and invite journalists to a semi-truck event. And that excitement and that hype, even though it was delayed and they pushed back production so much, Tesla Semi reveal was exactly 5 years ago today. What? I thought it was September. I could have sworn. Was it not? Tesla Semi unveil date. No, that's Google. What are you doing? 2 concept vehicles. Whoa, it was November. Okay, you were right. Never mind. Delayed production. Unveiled November 17th. Was it really today? That's hilarious. November 16th. Oh my god, I didn't even plan for that. That's hilarious. Huh. It's been exactly 5 years from the unveiling. Wow. Well, I'm glad that's the subject of today's live stream, or at least the first subject to talk about. That's so appropriate. I could have swore it was September, but I guess I'm mixing it up with some other date. But yeah, that was November 16th, 2017. That was Tesla's best event and most disappointing timeline of all time. Let's see. Tesla Barbarian says, sincere question, Elon, would you also support the inverse scenario? If Elon gave up all the other sideshow shenanigans and focus on Tesla, would that also serve to being back the Tesla thrill? I don't know, because I feel like Elon has different ideas for the future of Tesla. And I think I've fallen in love with what his ideas of earlier Tesla was. His current, what he gets the most excited for, and I think my guess, I could be wrong, but my guess as to what Elon does the most at Tesla right now is work with the AI team, work with the software engineers, and now especially work on bot. Because I think Elon in particular suffers the most from big picture syndrome, which I did a video on a couple weeks ago or a month ago or whatever, where basically he's constantly trying to tackle the hardest job. And whenever a job becomes too simple or too streamlined, he goes somewhere else where he feels like things are more impossible. Which is crazy, but I think Elon is attracted to that. He's attracted to tasks and jobs that feel impossible, because that's where I think he thrives, is where he's like in startup mode and like, you know, like trying to work really, really hard and assembling a right team, figuring out core fundamentals, trying to figure out what the limiting factor is with the adoption of a certain tech. So as stressful as it sounds for him to run Twitter right now, I think subconsciously maybe he just feels like he either has to do it or he loves it. He just feels like, I have to find meaningful work, and just diversifying the EV lineup, which is what we want. You know, we want our Cybertrucks, we want our Cyber SUV, we want our Cyber Roadster, or just the first Roadster. That would be good too. You know, we want more options. A lot of us want a full steering wheel on the Model S and X instead of a yoke, or some people want Model 3 and Y to have more ventilated seats. That's what we get excited for, is diversification and wider lineups of vehicles. We want to see Tesla do all kinds of new, do a boat, do a jet ski. That kind of stuff is just too simple. It's too easy for him. He wants a challenge. He wants something where the odds are against him, and I think that's where Elon thrives. And the way he's found that dire circumstance, the odds are against him, it feels impossible thing with Tesla is with the bot and with full self-driving. Anytime he gets talking about Tesla, he seems very invested in like, well, we don't need to work on a Model 2 or whatever. We don't need to work on a cheaper car because robotaxis are around the corner. And we're working on that design. And the robotaxi is going to be the cheapest cost per mile of ownership. And then, if you need to change your spare tires or if we need to plug in the robotaxi at the supercharger, the Tesla bot is going to do that. We're going to have a whole team of people for the next few years working on humanoid robots that are going to interpret the world around them with AI and eventually replace the labor force and replace manual labor jobs. And eventually there's going to be so many bots flooding the market that we're going to need universal basic income in order to stay afloat, because the Tesla bot is going to take all the jobs away. I feel like that's where Elon's mindset is towards Tesla. Not so much, can we get a 9-seater van? Can we get a cyber SUV? I don't think he's as interested in the product diversification, whereas a lot of us EV fans are more interested in how can you make them cheaper? How can you diversify it? How can you provide more options, more colors? We get excited for the Quicksilver and Midnight Cherry and those types of things. Or Cyberquad, yes. Let's see. Sincere. Oh, I already read that. Other next big thing I'm waiting for on is Aptera. I want a 1,000-mile range EV. Why? Because I want it. I understand. A lot of people feel that way about range. They need the best. Oopsie's in the chat, who I've been talking with on Discord a bit. He says, 1,000-mile Aptera is absolutely silly. 400-mile EV normal people can afford is far more revolutionary. I agree. I think the 400-mile range is... I'm glad they're building that one first. That's going to be plenty for most people. But I'm not against having options. And the capability and trip time that you could achieve with the 1,000-mile range is pretty insane when you think about it. Like, the fact that there's basically no gas cars that can do that. And yet the Aptera, even with a 1,000-mile range, is going to be lighter than the car I'm sitting in right now. And yet have 4 times the total range is just absurd. Like you said, why? Because I want it. That's Jonathan's motivation with it. But I agree, it's pretty over the top. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they scrap that model. But they haven't yet. Jonathan Croy says, is there anything in your Tesla you want them to add? I want automatic frunk, in-car greetings, and to babble to purchase new noises for the car that are just based on accelerations. What? Babble? Yeah, I would like a powered frunk. That would be nice. It's very nitpicky and tech specky, but yes, I would like 120 hertz on my display. I love ProMotion. I love the high refresh rate I have on my laptop and my phone and my iPad. I would love it if it was on my car, but that'll probably not happen for a long time. Oh yeah, there's lots of things I want. Like, I'm a fan of the yoke. I like the yoke with the capacitive buttons. So if there was a way to add that to my Model 3, I would. Through Tesla. I don't want to do the third-party thing. I know that's controversial. Most people don't like that. But I would also like to see more collaboration between Apple and Tesla. Like, I know that CarPlay can't take over the entire display because Tesla needs to show full self-driving visualization and stuff. But the enhanced CarPlay features Apple has teased at their last software event look very interesting and very compelling. So it'd be great if my phone and car could communicate a little bit better than just Bluetooth, and let Apple take control of some of the operating system at least. That would be nice. I wouldn't be against all kinds of things. Cooled seats, ventilated seats would be nice if they could do it. It's probably just too expensive, but eventually, if the margins improve, Tesla would probably rather make the product more desirable and keep the price the same than lower the prices. So that's something they could keep on the list. A lot of vehicles in this price range have ventilated seats already. The USB-C ports are 36 watts, which are very good, but there's some EVs on the road now that have like 100 watt USB-C ports. So my MacBook can just barely, which I'm using right now to live stream here, my MacBook can just barely hold a charge with the 36 watts, but sometimes if I'm doing something power intensive, it'll still slowly lose percentage. If it was 100 watts, I wouldn't have that problem. So maybe a little bit faster USB-C ports. I would appreciate that. Also, I feel like there's a way. I'm not exactly sure how you would do it, but there's a way to make the Model 3 a hatchback, which would make it a bit more practical. If you just push this column back, basically do the Model Y. Just have a Model Y lower to the ground. Like, if you push this column back to behind the second row, the opening could be a lot wider if there was a second piece of glass that opens there. So But yeah, overall, it's an amazing vehicle. I'm very happy with it. I've yet to find another vehicle that closely matches my preferences in design and aesthetic. I prefer this look, and I've been driving it a lot this past week, and it's been great. I get a smile on my face when I'm on autopilot and the car's just doing everything itself, and I just kind of lean my head back and relax, and I'm like, wow, I'm in the future. This is really cool. Oh, but the Model 3 should definitely have manual override for the rear seats. It's ridiculous that the Model 3 doesn't get that. The Model Y, S, and X have it, but not the 3. And that seems like a potential safety hazard in an emergency. I get it. It's rare. It probably won't be necessary. Ooh, we don't need to go to dark mode. Let's keep the light on. My Tesla screen is my light for the stream. I'm sorry, this is kind of smudged. I want to wipe down the camera a little bit. I think it's a little... There we go. I think that looks better. Sorry for the lighting. It's kind of smudged. But yeah, all kinds of little things, like little details. But overall, it's been a fantastic vehicle. Yeah, like Jonathan says, I live in a cold climate. 1,000 cut in half is 500. Yeah, that's probably what it would be like. Let's see. I'd like to know how much the demand for streaming or DVDs of Spaceballs went up in the month after that. That would be an interesting thing. You could probably look up Google Trends and see if there was a change. Jacob says, Elon said next week he's going back to Tesla and not focusing on Twitter as much. I didn't hear him say next week, but I heard there was I did see an email claiming, because Elon says next week a lot. Elon says 2 weeks a lot. So we'll see what that actually means. That's probably his intention. That doesn't mean it'll happen. But I did see something saying that his time at Twitter, he doesn't intend to be this intense at all times. It's just because Twitter is in massive restructuring mode. So he's spending a lot of time there right now. But long term, he wants someone else to really be in charge. That's not him. And he just... My guess is that Elon's dream scenario is that he can just go on Twitter since he owns it now. I think what Elon wants to do is, work at Tesla, work at SpaceX, and SpaceX is all going to be working on Starship, all devoted to orbital launches and manned missions to the moon and Mars. And that's what he wants to spend time on with SpaceX. And with Tesla, he wants to spend all of his time on the bot and with robotaxis and AI and software, not so much on new vehicle design like RVs or vans or cyber SUVs or anything like that, or roadsters. He wants to just turn it into a automation and robotics company. That's what he's interested in. And then for Twitter, he goes to the bathroom, he opens the Twitter app, and he uses it. And if he sees something he doesn't like, he tweets that he doesn't like it, and then the Twitter team has to fix it based on his tweet. I'm pretty sure that's his dream scenario. I don't think he wants to be there 7 days a week or anything like that. He's used Twitter so much over the years that he's like, you know what? I'm rich enough. I would like to just be able to make a suggestion and then it happens. And that's what happens when you become that rich. You can get those kinds of things. You're so insanely rich. I don't like that the Twitter app works this way. I don't like that there's no edit button. There should be an edit button. And then you go back to work, and then the next time you use the bathroom, there's an edit button. Or I don't like that this person's verified. They shouldn't be verified. And then you go back to work. Next time you go on the toilet, that person's no longer verified. I think that's his long-term goal. Elon has become too political and is causing people to boycott the brand. I feel like Elon's kind of always been that way. It's just people forget about... I mean, the most bizarre things he said are definitely a long time ago. And they didn't... You can look up weird Elon Musk tweets from like 2010 to 2012. There's some crazy things he said. I don't think he's actually changed much. He's just gotten more popular. And because he's gotten so popular and well-known, the crazy things he says are a lot louder than they used to be. But ultimately, I don't think as a person he's honestly changed that much. But there are definitely people that won't buy Teslas because of Elon. I question how many of those people there are. But Tesla doesn't have a demand problem. So ultimately, because EVs are so production constrained and not demand constrained, it doesn't really matter if there's a bunch of people boycotting Tesla, because there's enough people that are like, okay, yeah, you choose to buy a worse product. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and buy this Tesla. It's like, that's fine. We don't need more people buying Teslas right now. There's so many orders to fill and there's such a backlog. It's like, can we just That's can we just have some more people boycott so that they can actually lower prices, and then the people that actually want Teslas can get their vehicles at a discount? Um, Elon wants to do the impossible, not reasonable things. Model 3 and Y can be unchanged and still scale/sell enough for years. Yeah, Elon honestly has achieved the impossible many times. I mean, if you read his books or follow the stories, everyone thought he was insane because and reckless because he sold PayPal for hundreds of millions of dollars, and most people would quit there and just retire on an island. But he chose to split his investment into an electric vehicle startup and a rocket company, which everyone at the time was like, this is the stupidest possible thing you could do. A private space company with limited funding. And it was during the recession that they were trying to ramp Tesla. So it's like the economy's in the toilet, financials are terrible, startup car companies almost always fail, and on top of that you're trying to make it all electric, which is even more difficult to be profitable and even more difficult to scale because the supply chains aren't in place. And he pursued both despite everyone telling him it's impossible, it's stupid, it's unrealistic, but he made it work. And that's not to say that because he was successful with Tesla and SpaceX that means he'll be successful in everything he does. I don't believe that. I still think there's a chance Twitter could flop, but I do want to remind people that Twitter was not doing very well before Elon took over it anyway. They were not very profitable and they were losing money and losing activity. And if there is someone on this earth that can save Twitter, Elon's probably one of them. So we'll dive more into that. Uh, there's people. There's people walking. I think my neighbor's coming up to visit. Give me a second, guys. I'm gonna mute myself if you don't mind. Okay, we're back. That's really funny. There's a guy actually trying to get me to get solar. I don't know why he's walking up straight to my house. I can't tell where he came from. He's just walking down the street. I thought he was my neighbor or something. I didn't recognize him, but it seemed like a nice guy. He was just trying to convince me to get solar on the house. Yeah, I muted myself because there's a guy just walking down my driveway, and I was like, "What is he doing?" I was like, "Who is this person?" And I think he saw me talking because I was doing this and I was moving my hands around and talking to the camera, and he started waving at me. I think he thought I was talking to him. And he came down. He's like, the PG&E wants everybody to lower their energy consumption. I see you have a Tesla. Have you thought about getting solar? And I was basically telling him, if I would have known that was the conversation, I wouldn't have muted myself. But I just didn't want him to not. I basically at the end told him like I'm on a, I didn't want to say live streaming because it's like there's this random guy who seems friendly, but still there's a random guy that's just walked onto my property. I'm not going to tell him I'm a YouTuber or I'm making YouTube videos or something. So I just said I'm in like an online meeting right now. I'm just trying to get some work done while my wife wants some time in the house to herself. No, I'm really just streaming in the car because I like streaming in the car, but I was just trying to tell him like I got some people waiting on me, dude. And he was like, sorry about that, and he just headed out on his way. But yeah, it was an interesting conversation. That was weird. You can have your laptop mounted like that. Yes, I can. Sorry about that. This combo was gonna last like 30 minutes. No, he was well trained. He kind of knew what he was talking about. But he, I think, assumed I was dumber than I was. He assumed I didn't know much about that. He's like, have you thought about solar? And I'm like, well, a lot of places don't want to put solar on our kind of roof. And he was like, yeah, but you have other options. You don't have to put it on the roof. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know. I've talked to people that have done solar on the ground, and that can be problematic too. And he was like, and I said, the other thing is we're not sure how long we're going to be at this house. We might be moving in a couple of years anyway. And he was like, yeah, but the property value goes up a lot more if you get solar. And I'm like, well, we don't know if we're selling the house. We might rent it out, in which case, do I really just want to lower electric bill for my tenants? That I'll probably have to drive the price of the rent up to justify it having solar. So yeah, it is a funny conversation because of how relevant it was to EV. I was worried that was just a neighbor that was like, hey, what are you doing? And what's your name? And I was just going to be like, probably don't just walk up to people in their yard. I know it's weird. I know it's weird to see a guy with all the lights on in his car talking to himself. I don't know who he thought maybe he thought I was waving him in or something, but oh, that was funny. Sorry about that. Sorry to keep you guys muted for that long. He's not having let's see. We'll just talk amongst ourselves. What did you guys in the Tesla hatchback? What the model, I mean the hatchback is on pretty much all Teslas except the Model 3. How long from now do you think the 1 million mile battery will come out? We already have it. The lithium iron phosphate battery can go 1 million miles before it needs to be serviced. Let's see. I did see 9to5 Max enhanced CarPlay on Tesla renders. I thought they were a little too controlling because, again, they don't accommodate for the blind spot camera. They don't accommodate for full self-driving visualization. So I don't think they should give that much control up, but at least like the right 2/3 of the display, which is mostly settings and navigation and music and stuff, that whole half Apple could probably control, but the left third column that shows your range and your speed and everything, I don't think they should let Apple touch that. But yeah, they did look kind of nice. Tesla wants to make 100 semis a year. What you think? I don't think that's what it said at all. I think you're misreading that headline, Edgar. I did see the headline that said Tesla might make 100 semis this year. But Elon said that they want the production goal to be 50,000 units by 2024. I don't think that means 50,000 a year. I think he means there's going to be 50,000 Tesla semis on the road by the end of 2024, in which case they're going to need to build a lot more than 100 a year. That's for sure. But we'll see how that ramp goes. That might be way too ambitious. Um, let's see. When we talk about Elon, most people talk about Tesla or any controversies, but in my opinion, SpaceX deserves a lot more recognition for what they're achieving. I agree. And I think it's also important to keep in mind that one man does not achieve all those things. It's an accumulation of tens of thousands of hardworking software and hardware engineers that are making what Tesla and SpaceX do possible. And I think both in positive and negative ways, people associate Elon as the sole source of, you know, Elon's crazy, Elon's terrible, Elon has these bad ideas, or Elon is the one who made that possible. Elon is the one who made these rockets. Elon is the one who ramped these. It's like, it's not done by one person. It's done by tons of people. And I think it's much easier, in my opinion, to be a proud supporter of a company or a brand that has a very clear mission statement or purpose, because human beings are complicated. Human beings have opinions that change, and it's very unlikely that you're going to find any other human being in your life that you just agree with on everything without question. Even your very close friends that you get along with are probably very what's it called, very close, that you're very close with, that you'll find differences on. Like you'll hang out with them all the time, but they disagree with you on some political subject, or there's some movie you like, or something. There's always disagreements between people, but it's with a company or a brand with a mission that you can get behind and understand, like accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. That, okay, I can understand that. I can get behind that. And the choices they make to make that possible is great. Now, are there mistakes along the way with there's human flaw, and there's bad managers or people that run the factory poorly that should be fired, or there's human resource issues that need to be fixed? Then yeah, those are all problems, but ultimately you get on board with the mission. Same reason I'm so pumped about Aptera is because they have a very clear and obvious mission statement of make the world's most efficient vehicles. And I love that, because I really care about efficiency, and they're very focused and very driven on like how to make a super low energy consuming vehicle that can charge itself through solar. That's awesome. That's really exciting to me. And I get more excited about that than more generic brands that are just like, we can do EVs too. Ours has a better logo though. We like our logo, and mine's more luxurious. I don't know. I've watched a lot of Lucid content in the past few days, and I think the more I watch, the less interested I get. The less excited I am for Lucid, because it just feels like trying to, I don't know, be the most likable Tesla alternative. It's like, it's the perfect car for every Tesla hater. for every reason you don't like Tesla, there's a Lucid. It's like, I don't like the yoke. This one has a full wheel. I don't like the materials. This one has nice materials. I don't like the range. This one has longer range. I don't like the charge speed. This one has faster charge speed. It's all about the, Marquez just did his Lucid review, and it's very true. Lucid's whole mission statement feels built around one-up Tesla on their most expensive models, by wanting them up on specs, but also wanting them up on price. And I'm like, does the world need more of that? Is that what I want to support with my investments, or with my capital, or with my product buying decisions? Do I want to buy companies that are focused on one-upping each other, not just in premium feel, but also in price? It's like, okay, Tesla made an even faster car, the Plaid Model S. Oh, well, we're going to do the Sapphire for $250. It's like, what does that encourage if I support that? If I continue to buy into that, and I continue to, invest in that kind of future, does that mean that Porsche is going to make electric 911 that can outperform the Sapphire? It's like, okay, great, but now there's even more cars in the world we can't afford. Like, I don't know. I think I want to support companies that are trying to push the boundaries on things that are more important. And to me, the biggest limiting factors with EV adoption are affordability, availability, and Aptera, I think, is helping with both of those. Let's see. To be fair, they made him political. When both his companies are contributing so much to the country and the government is trying to drag him down in every possible way, he should be mad. I understand, but there's things I think he very easily could just not talk about publicly. there's a lot of controversial takes and hot takes that I think everyday people have all the time. And just like, Thanksgiving's around the corner, right? We're all going to be, hopefully, depending on where you are in the world, maybe not, depending on your country. Sorry, $250,000. I talk so fast I can't get my prices out. 250 grand for the Sapphire. But we're gonna have Thanksgiving soon, so a lot of us are probably gonna be gathered around the dinner table with a bunch of family members that we don't agree with politically, or socially, or on lots of things we don't agree with. But when you get together for Thanksgiving, you kind of put those things aside. You kind of know how they feel. You kind of heard them talk on passively, or you've seen them post things on social media that you don't agree with. So you all just agree to put your differences aside, get together, and we just try to find common ground on things. Let's talk about things we like. Let's talk about this food. This food is delicious. And, how's work going? Do you like your job, or what are you looking forward to? Where do you want to travel? What vacation places? There's some people that we have passionate beliefs on big subjects, but you don't necessarily bring those up in front of everybody, because it just results in a, heated conversation and everyone starts arguing. And that's how I feel towards Elon. It's like, yeah, I know you believe those things. Why do you gotta tweet it? Why do you gotta share that with 100 million people? Why can't you just keep that to yourself and think, this is how I think it should go? And maybe tell that to your, little personal circle. But Elon's reckless. Elon's the kind of guy that wants to share that with the world and share that. I don't have an issue with people believing those things, even though I disagree with them. It's just like, when you're such a large public figure with so many eyes watching you, anything you say is going to be extrapolated on and implied, and people are going to make assumptions based on what you say, which I've seen happen countless times with Elon, where because Elon said this, that means he believes this too. And then the people who buy your product, they got to defend your product and say, no, it's okay. I don't agree with Elon, but I like the car. I got to do that all the time now. Every time my father-in-law gets in this car, I got to talk about Twitter now. And that's just the world we live in, because that's Elon's personality. You got to it comes with both. You have to be kind of crazy and you have to be kind of reckless to tackle the things Elon tackles. I think he said that on SNL. He said something like, what? You expected me to invest and start my own EV company and private rockets that land themselves, and you thought I would just be a normal guy? It's like, I don't like SNL. I don't think SNL is usually that funny, but that was a pretty true line he said that I'm sure someone else wrote. It's like, you expect someone who tackles those insane problems to just be completely normal outside of that? Like, no, of course he's kind of insane. That's why he's crazy. Let's see. What have I cut out? Oh, Christian, thank you for the super chat. He says, thoughts on Lexus RZ and BZ4X. At Lexus, we are working on cool app features. Oh, interesting. I'm not a big fan of the BZ4X. I know very little about the Lexus RZ, but when you say we are working on cool app features, that makes me think you work for Lexus. So now I feel bad. Now I feel like I have to look this stuff up. Lexus RZ. Is it all electric? I don't know, man. I'm getting... It looks kind of cool. I'm looking at the webpage right now. I'm getting, what is it called? Blazer effect vibes. Let's see some of these specs. 71 kilowatt hour battery pack with 220 mile range. It's not great. I mean, I like the landscape display, but those are a lot of buttons. Can I show you guys what I'm looking at here? Here we go. Forward-thinking interior. Yeah, I don't like controls here. That's not a place for controls. I also don't like how many buttons there are on the steering wheel. But hey, you're asking a Tesla guy what he thinks. This is what you're going to get. These vents are too high, in my opinion. That eats into visibility. I mean, oh, that's a prototype, too. Lots of colors. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting hatch design that makes, I guess, some aerodynamic sense, but looks like a 5-seater. So for those who don't listen to the EV podcast, this is what we call the Blazer effect. There's an infinite number of Um, it's good that it's USB-C chargers, but the wireless charger, why is it landscape like that? I wouldn't want it in landscape. Um, hmm. I like the glass roof. That's good. It's got the accessibility handles. That's nice. My car doesn't have that. This car probably costs a lot less. The Blazer effect is a term we came up with because there's so many five-seater crossover EVs on the market. And it becomes increasingly difficult to get excited or interested in all of them because they're all very similar. They're all just slightly tweaked design, somewhat aerodynamic. They have some buttons, but also a display which supports CarPlay because the company doesn't want to take complete control over the. They don't want to have that intuitive or that game-changing software, so they fall back on Apple or Android to do kind of the heavy lifting. I like that the display is large. That's important to me. It seems practical. It's just like, why? There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just like, why should I pick that over anything else? What's the main? You need something that stands out because there's like an ocean of electric crossovers right now that are all five-seaters that all have something over 200 miles of range, and they all have some buttons and dials for the people that like buttons and dials, but still a display, but it's not quite going to be at the same software caliber as a Tesla or a Rivian. So I'm sorry. I want to get excited for those, but I don't know what to get excited for. It's just I've seen like a million of those things at this point. How do they stand out? Not my real YouTube at all says, I just want to point out they stuck to the promise of 500-mile range. Why do you think Cybertruck won't? I think it's because the Semi is more dependent on that range for its purpose. The Semi has one very specific purpose, and that is to haul large amounts of cargo, and they know that the 500-mile range will easily cover like 80% of trucking routes because 80% of Class 8 trucking is moving things 250 miles or less. So Elon's whole pitch at the event, which was exactly 5 years ago to this day, is you can, with a 500-mile range, you can drive your cargo all the way to the destination and back without stopping. So that means less mega chargers. It fits the need of the Semi because it's built from the ground up to tow. No one's driving around the Semi without a trailer on the back, or at least companies aren't. Tesla tests them occasionally, but no one's buying a Semi just to use for casual use. It's for towing. I don't feel the same way about the Cybertruck. Rivian and Ford have both proven that there is a large amount of demand for electric trucks that don't have 400 miles of range. Lots of people are buying Rivians at very high price, lots of them over six figures, for trucks that barely go 300 miles. And there's tons of demand for them. And the Cybertruck has way more demand than the Semi does. They turned off orders for the Semi. Semi is relatively low volume compared to other Tesla vehicles. Yes, it will be very battery hungry. What did Oopsie say here? I think he mentioned it earlier. That's enough batteries for around 400,000 cars per year going to Semis. Per year if they did, what, 50,000? Sorry, I know it was a while since we talked about that. But yeah, there's a lot of 2170 cells to go around, it seems, because everywhere you look, there's more companies adopting 2170s. Lucid's using 2170s, Rivian's using 2170s, Aptera's using 2170s, and then they can't get the 4680s to ramp quickly enough at Giga Texas, so they switched to 2170s at Giga Texas. And we thought, when they announced that the Semi was coming this year, that it must be ahead of schedule because they got 4680s in the Semi. And then Elon comes forward and says, no, the Semi's not using 4680s. So we assume, I think they just got plenty of 2170s to go around by my assumption. So from what I can tell, with the ramp up of Giga Texas, Giga Berlin is also using all 2170s right now. I think they're starting to use BYD Blade batteries. I'm not sure if those have actually entered production yet, but I know they're rumored to. They're trying to get LFP in more places, but ultimately there's just tons of 2170 cells to go around. And the Semi is just going to keep using cells that are already available. It seems like if Giga Texas is able to ramp up and Berlin is able to ramp up, then the limiting factor, which Tesla did technically say at the beginning of this year, the limiting factor with EV adoption right now is not cells. They said we have enough cells for all of the production we need. I think they started 2022 by saying that they're more chip constrained than anything. They have the lacking of chips. And with the Semi, you probably need a lot less chips because it's just one vehicle. So for Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or whatever, it only needs one. Or for battery management system, it's a big battery, but you only need one management system. Yeah, I would love to see more LFP as well. Let me try to catch up here. I wonder if the Semi will be able to use FSD beta or it'll only be semi-autonomous. Okay, Alpha. Okay. Impressive. I like that joke. Made both successful, but he took them from startups to real companies. It's true. Elon wasn't the one who started Tesla, nor was he the founder of PayPal and sold it off. That's just a huge misconception. I've heard lots of misconceptions about, yes, technically Elon didn't start Tesla himself, but the people that did were doing nothing with the company, and everyone unanimously on the board voted off the guy who actually founded Tesla, if you want to get technical, who basically, when Elon came to Tesla, it was a word on a piece of paper. They were not doing anything before Elon got there. They had no product, they had no prototype, they had no customers. It was just an idea. And Elon and JB Straubel thought that it would be easier to join an existing EV startup than start out their own. But because of all of the issues they had with the original co-founders that were voted out of Tesla because they didn't know what they were doing and they were incompetent and they were lying about the price of things. Elon has told this story. He mentioned that it's not just him. It's like everyone on the Tesla board voted Mike off. Mike, I forget his last name. One of the original, if you want to get technical, who really started Tesla, that one of those guys, they called him and they were asking him questions that they knew the answers to. They how much does it cost to build the Roadster? And he lied directly to Elon and the board, saying that it cost a certain amount, and they knew for a fact he was aware that it was more than what he was claiming. So because they knew he was lying and deceptive, they voted him off the company. It wasn't just Elon. So yes, technically Elon was not there the very founding moment, but he got co-founder credit because basically he had to restructure the whole company, and he's pretty much the only one from the original four that are still there. So I don't subscribe to that whole, well, Tesla was doing fine and then Elon came in at the last minute and took all the credit. No, that's not true. At least I see no evidence of that being true currently. Let's see. I can't support Porsche till they remove turbo out of the name, but I like the look of the exterior. It does feel weird to call it turbo on an EV, but yeah, I agree. I like the Taycan. I think it's a really... I've seen a couple in the wild, and I think actually when I went to the Rivian event last year, the first mile event, I parked right next to a Taycan, and it was just a beautiful vehicle. I loved it. Josh Taylor says, just wanted to say thanks for the clear and concise videos. Oh, thank you, Josh. That's very nice of you. Thank you. Alexis interior always looked and still looks so outdated to me. I mean, when you get used to Tesla's interiors, it's hard to go with anything else and feel more futuristic or modern. Alpha says, I don't think high execs would want one right now anyways, considering so many mass layoffs are going on within big tech at the moment. Oh, what? They wouldn't want a Semi? Oh, the Lucid. The Lucid wasn't meant for the middle class in the first place, so what's your point? You guys are talking about helping people actually consider purchasing a Lucid, let alone an expensive one. No, I don't think it's necessarily the economy. Personally, I don't think that the market Lucid was targeting is affected by the recession very much. But the point is that the market Lucid is targeting is not very interested in Lucid. Sorry, I hate to say it, but there's a reason that the reservations went down more than they delivered vehicles. And what's crazier than that even is not only did the reservation number go down, they also introduced a new model. I don't think people have emphasized that enough. They introduced an entirely new trim of Lucid Air and the reservations dropped. So which way do you guys interpret it? Do you think an insanely low number of people, like less than 100 people, reserved the Sapphire, in which case is this worth their time if they're going to make 10 of them, 20 of them? They're going to make like $2 or $3 million. It probably costs like $50 million to come up with the triple motor powertrain. And they widen the whole vehicle too and spend all this time on the software to make it customizable during track. Like, the whole project may be a complete loss just for the sake of bragging rights. Or do you think that a decent number of people reserve the Sapphire, like maybe a couple hundred people reserve the Sapphire, and there's just an insanely large number of people canceling all of their reservations for other Lucids, like the Air Touring or the Grand Touring, and all those reservations are falling through? Which is it? You got to pick one. Because over the course of 3 months, they lost over 1,500 reservations. They delivered, I think something around 1,400 cars, and then they went from 37,000 reservations to 34,000, which is a roughly 3,000 reservation drop despite under 1,500. So that means like 500 reservations a month are backing out. Net, there's maybe new people, and that's during a 3-month period where a new trim was introduced. So which do you think it is? Is no one ordering the Sapphire, or is a bunch of people canceling their other Airs? It's got to be one. It can't be both. Maybe it is both, actually. But it can't be neither. That's the term I was looking for. It can't be neither of those, but it has to be one of those. It has to be one or two, but not zero. I see a Taycan every day. I never get tired of it. I agree. I think for people that are looking for a vehicle, an electric vehicle that's premium and luxurious and fun to drive, there's the Taycan. And for people that are going for utmost luxury, there's the Mercedes EQS and the most comfortable, most premium feeling interior. And for the people that want the best tech, there's the Model S. The Lucid is just in this very weird, like very saturated market. Not to mention there's the Audi e-tron. There's more. It's just so crowded, and all Lucid really has going for them, they're not the most luxurious. They're not that cheap either. They're much more expensive than the Model S. They don't have the best software, but they have the highest range. But as we're seeing with the reservation drop, range isn't everything. I don't think that means that more range is necessarily a bad thing. It's just that people aren't willing to pay that much of a premium for range. That's why I think Aptera is so compelling, is because they're offering lots of range at a low price. It's not, I think people probably misunderstand that about me sometimes. It's probably earlier, I think I saw a message someone said about my range argument, or I disagree with your thoughts on range. Let's see. I saw that earlier. Sorry if Skylar says, I understand your range argument, but I recently went on a trip. It was really nice being able to make it to my destination, get around while I was up there and back without having to fill up. I agree, it's nice. It's just, will that premium, we don't experience this in the gas market with the gas car vehicles. You just, all vehicles have typically pretty good range. Even cheap gas cars can go well over 300 miles. Well, a lot of them over 400 miles, no question. It's just not even a discussion. My whole argument about range is that the premium you will have to pay to get an EV to go 400, 500 miles is so absurdly high that most people would rather have a slower trip where they have to think about charging a little bit, maybe take a trip to a charge station and save $10, $20, $30,000 than they would pay that much of a premium. And I'm not saying there's no market for high-range EVs. I'm just saying the number of people that are going to be willing to pay that premium is somewhat low. So, like, the battery is the most expensive part of the vehicle, and the bigger the battery, the higher the weight, which means the more energy you need to go the same distance. So it's not linear. You can't just put, twice as many battery packs in the car. Now it goes twice as far. It's not always that simple. But it is, I think, somewhat believable that in the future, when more EVs have ramped and there's more EVs on the road and we're at higher volume, that you'll be able to buy something like, let's say, the Lexus RZ 450e, right? This is my example for the sake of the argument, because I have this tab open. Let's say in the future, because I don't know what the range is with this, or 220 miles. I don't know what the price is. That's what I meant to say. You'll be able to get this EV crossover with 220 or 230 miles of range for an example, this is not the official price, but let's say you could buy that for $30,000. Okay? Pretty reasonable, pretty cheap in the future relative to other new gas cars. $30,000, don't have to pay for gas. It goes a little over 200 miles. Now, to get the same vehicle to go 400 miles, it costs $50,000 now. You got to pay $20,000 extra to go 150 miles more. Will some people opt for that? Yes, absolutely. I'm not denying that. There's definitely going to be people that will pay the extra money for the range. But once they start clicking and once people start realizing how little difference that makes for daily driving, when you're just driving around town and stuff, it doesn't really matter carrying 400-mile range versus 220, 230. That doesn't make a big impact. But the $20,000 of savings and on road trips, the amount of time you save once you realize that at charge stations, you don't charge to full, you charge till you can reach your next destination. A fast charging EV with over 200 miles of range is really only going to be 20, 30 minutes behind on like an all day road trip. Like when I was comparing the long range Model 3 to the standard range Model 3 I'm in right now, on the big long road trip we make to my parents' house, which is out of state every year, we do that drive at least once, sometimes more. I realized that, okay, it's going to cost $11,000 more to get the long range, and on those road trips I will save like 40 minutes. Maybe round up a bit and say we save an hour. Okay, so on your 2 or 3 road trips a year, you save 1 hour, but you spent $11,000. Worth is subjective, you know. If you make $150,000 a year, maybe $11,000 isn't that big a deal. But if you make $50,000 a year, that extra $11,000 is gonna basically price you out. Like you straight up can't get the car if you want the long range, but you can get it if you're comfortable with the standard range. So to me, that barrier of entry is ultimately what's going to result in the vast majority of EVs being sub 300-mile range in the future, because it's just going to be so much more economical to have a lower range EV than it will be a high range EV. Not to say that they won't buy them, but the difference with the Aptera, again, I'm not against having more range. It's a nice to have, but the Aptera is like, we'll give you an extra 150 miles of range for $3,000, not $20,000 or not $10,000. There's a big range increase for not very much money. People can, a lot of people spend $3,000 on gas over the course of like 2 years, basically. So spending an extra $3,000 on your new car is not as difficult to justify. And with the Aptera, it's like, okay, and if you spend an extra $5,000, you get another 200 miles of range. So for a 600-mile range EV, $35,000, people are a lot more comfortable with that because it's much more obtainable and it's not that big of a financial burden. Thoughts on Polestar? I saw they're opening a storefront near me. I've seen them on the road a couple times. They seem nice. They're fine. But again, Blazer effect, people. Blazer. They're all Chevy Blazers. They're all somewhat futuristic looking crossovers, but they still got the buttons. Still got to have those dials. And a somewhat smaller display because automaker's going to fall back on CarPlay anyway. Decent range, decent charging speed. It's like rolling the dice. There's like a million of these little crossovers, and you just have some dice. It's like a board game. Make your own electric crossover, and you just roll the dice. The range is... dice falls. 240 miles. Okay, and the peak charge speed is... 200 kilowatts. Okay. And the hatchback is... 50 cubic feet of storage space. Okay, they're all just like slightly different. Okay, this one has a little bit more cubic feet. This one has a little bit more range. This one, it's like, there's no way in the EV community, I'm sorry, as an EV channel, there's no way we're going to be able to form definitive, strong opinions on every single, because there's more and more EVs every year, right? More and more companies are going electric, except Toyota for some reason. But there's more and more people switching to electric. Eventually, there's going to be hundreds of EVs on the market to choose from. And they're all going to be fairly similar. Everyone's targeting this crossover. So to me, if you want a strong opinion, if you want me to do videos on the product, you have to stand out. You have to be unique. You have to do something different from everybody else. You can't just be mildly futuristic, mildly aerodynamic electric crossover that gets okay range. If it was something like this crossover gets 500 miles of range and costs $35,000, I'd be like, okay, oh wait a minute, that's unheard of. How do you do that? But when it's just same old, same old, same old, same old between all these different brands, you're basically just choosing a logo. Which logo do you like? Are you a diehard Lexus fan? Are you a diehard Toyota fan? I know both. I know. Are you a diehard GM fan? Are you a Ford fan? Just pick your brand. That's fine, but don't expect everyone else that. I'm not going to go to the Ford channels and ask them what they think of the Cybertruck. You know, I don't do that. Maybe you do, but let's see. Oh, Skylar here again said, in my opinion, they don't need anything to stand out. The fact that it's just another option is enough. You said it yourself. Demand is high, so more alternatives is a good thing for the whole market. Yeah. I'm not against them releasing it. I hope that should be clear. I hope that's not the message I'm sending. It's fine if you want to just make an electric version of someone else's product. We could also do an electric crossover. Okay. There's a Chevy Blazer, except it's a different brand. But that doesn't mean I need to talk about it. That doesn't mean I need to have a strong opinion on it. I genuinely just don't. Same with Polestar. Same with Fisker. Same with the Lexus RZ 450. Can you at least, automakers, here's a pet peeve I have. Can you at least try to come up with a somewhat iconic name? Can we stop having to read serial numbers every time we refer to your car? I don't want to have to say BZ4X or RZ450E. I feel like I'm describing Sony headphones, for God's sake. It's ridiculous. There's one thing I love about Tesla is I could just say Model Y. One letter. Which model is it? The Y. I'm in the Model 3. Done. We don't have to do these whole like RZ450E X Turbo 4S. It's like, oh my God. And I could just say Aptera. Boom. And I can kind of just say Rivian. I technically get a little bit into the weeds with that because I got to say R1T or R1S. But at least it's only 3. The Lexus, my God, the Lexus is 6 letters and numbers strung together. BZ4X is 4. Ugh. My gosh. Polestar 2. That's nice and simple. I'll give Polestar credit for that. They kept the name short and easy. Yeah, like Josh Taylor just said, new crossover comes up. Yep, that's a car. That is so true. That's how I feel about so many of these things. Is I don't expect much media attention or much video coverage from me unless you're doing something unique or different or something that stands out. The Model Y is the best seller, but that's why we're not talking about the Model Y all that much, is because there's not much going on with it. The biggest news with the Model Y in recent history was new colors. And they were great, but, that's all we can do. We could just say, yeah, they look great. Okay. Moving out. Alpha says, MKZ is a Lincoln. Oh, whoops. Yeah, that's not a Lexus. And he also says, I like the Taycan, just hate CCS. No, I'm there. I'm with you. I want everybody. Ooh, why didn't I think of that? Porsche should adopt NACS. They're pretty low volume. They're early in their ramp phase. If there's plenty of 2170s to go around, then what's the long-range Model 3? Then where's the long-range Model 3? Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe they were just building so many long-range Model 3s now that they've stopped building them. They have all these 2170 cells to pull from. But I definitely thought my original prediction was that they discontinued or temporarily stopped making the long-range Model 3 so that they could divert cells to the long-range Model Y because that's a far more profitable vehicle. You have way thicker margins. You can charge like $10,000 more, and it probably costs less to build using the same battery pack. Made sense in my mind, but I guess that doesn't support the theory that how many 2170 cells do they have lying around for the Semi? Maybe they're at such low volume production right now that it doesn't matter. And perhaps Elon's getting way too ambitious with the 50,000 target for the Semi. Let's see. Mason says, you genuinely deserves more subs for the effort. Oh, Mason, stop. That's not true. There's way better EV channels than me that absolutely deserve a larger following. I don't really try that hard with my videos. I just talk a lot. I just argue with people. That's pretty much all I do. I don't like go out and drive new EVs or buy all the new EVs and test them. I don't do any of that exciting stuff. Let's see. Matthew says, a mall by me has a Lucid showroom, and it's right next to an Apple store, so I know at least one very convenient point of sale location if Apple buys them. That's got to be intentional. I'm telling you. Lucid, after watching the event yesterday, I thought it was ironic that I watched the Lucid event in my Tesla, and it was great. Like, display, with like the quality was great. The sound system was amazing. It's like, I love watching other EV brands' videos in my car that, could you watch a Tesla event in a Lucid? Not with the on-board display. They're like, wow, we have a 5K resolution on our speedometer. Does it play YouTube? No. Then why the heck is it 5K? Who the heck cares? But it was just amazing to me, the cinematography and the filming and the angles. They went all out. Like, as far as EV startups go, Lucid blows the most amount of money on marketing. And it's amazing. It's beautiful. It's probably not good for the sake of the company. The fact that the reservations are dropping says a lot about, no wonder you're spending big money on marketing. It's probably because you can't get people to buy your stuff. But just from someone who's followed Apple for a lot of my life and watched a lot of Apple events, it felt like I was watching an Apple event, except it was about cars. And I think the Lucids look cool. I like the look of them, especially the Stealth one. It's just a shame they can't really find a good portion of the market. They can't find a good fit. I really think they should have started with the Gravity. See, that's my perfect example. Is like, there's so many electric crossovers. They're all Chevy Blazers that all blur together, and I'm just like, do something different, do something unique. And at least with the Lucid Gravity unveil, they showcased the second row with the what are they called? I keep forgetting the name of the seats. Are they called pilot seats? Are they called executive seats or whatever? But the executive seats that fold all the way back and even have like leg, what are those called? Drew can't remember anything today. Leg rests, the things that hold your legs up, and they have this giant glass roof. I was like, see, that's different. That's unique. We don't see that many electric SUVs that have the reclining second row, and they at least had freaking armrests. Model X doesn't even have armrests on the 6-seater. It's ridiculous. But the Model X has the Falcon Wing doors, and it's the supercharger access and the windshield that goes all the way back. There's a lot of unique things to the Model X. I like the Model X a lot. Actually, this morning, I was daydreaming with the wife again. I just want to reiterate, we love this car. We're very happy with the Model 3. We have no intentions on selling or trading it in or doing anything with it. We want to keep the Model 3 for decades. However, we had a bit on the EV podcast where we were discussing what would we do if we had like an emergency twin situation. Like, we're not planning on having kids in the near future, but if suddenly Louise got pregnant with twins or triplets or something, all of a sudden the Model 3 doesn't work for us anymore, what would we do? She was looking a few weeks ago at used Model Ys, and the prices were pretty abysmal. But this morning I started looking at some used Model X's, which were pretty old, and I'm sure they got issues because they're old, but the used Model X prices are actually dipping below the used Model Y prices now, which I thought was interesting. You have to get them pretty old, and I'm sure that, again, they have problems with them, but I was able to find a couple used Model X's in the low $50,000 range. I was like, okay, a new Model Y is $66,000. And a used Model X, okay, it's got a lot of miles on it, and I'm sure the range isn't great, and I'm sure the UI is slow, and I get it. There's all kinds of problems with the old Teslas. But if I was in an emergency and we needed an SUV that could fit more people, and of course I don't want to go back to gas, I would be fairly tempted to trade in or sell the Model 3 for a used Model X. It wouldn't be ideal. I would rather just keep this car, of course, but if there was an emergency pregnancy or something like that, I was like, maybe the used Model X would be the cheaper route. Honestly, the way cheaper route would just be to buy a Chevy Bolt, but then we're stuck with CCS, and we don't want to do that. Let's see. That was funny, though. We were talking about that this morning. Are you in a boring tunnel? Yes, I am. How did you know, Roman? New crossover comes out. Yep, that's a car. Skylar says, I just also remember you saying a couple times that this wasn't specifically a Tesla channel you named in Tailosive EV instead of Tailosive Tesla, so you could talk about all EVs. No, I do. I I don't honestly think I've talked much about Tesla in my last couple videos. Um, we've talked about Aptera. In the past week, we talked about Lucid, we talked about Aptera, we talked about opening up NACS, which is kind of Tesla related, but it's more about non-Teslas. And then I recapped the Lucid Air event, and I talked about which EV pickup will have a 400-mile range first. That involved a lot of mostly me talking about the Rivian Max Pack and the Silverado EV. I didn't really talk much about the Cybertruck in that video. So I think in order to have an accurate representation of the EV market, it's important to acknowledge that Tesla is most of the EV market. They are the biggest EV automaker. They have delivered the most EVs. And especially where I live, the United States market, they are 2/3 of the EV market. So to me, an accurate representation of the EV market on my channel would be about 2/3 of the videos are about Tesla, because that's their ownership of the market. But no, I don't think that necessarily means that. Yeah, I'm not trying to just talk about Tesla, and I'm honestly diving a lot more into the to me it makes more sense for you to dive into the EV brands that are interesting or exciting to you. If there's not really much for me to talk about or say, then there's not much of a video to be had. I can't make a video about the Lexus RZ 450e. First of all, that's a mouthful. Second of all, what am I supposed to say? You just want me to read the tech specs? Lexus announced their electric crossover. It has this much range, this fast a charging speed. It looks pretty good. I can't give you much. There's not much I can say. So, rather than make videos on cars that I'm not interested in and say that this isn't a Tesla, I wish it was a Tesla, or, this isn't like my Tesla, I'd rather do videos on these are the subjects that are exciting to me. These are the startups that I'm interested in. These are the existing vehicles that I think are going to make a difference. Captain Chairs, thank you. But yeah, we talked a lot about semis, which I guess is Tesla related. But yeah, I would hardly say that this channel is primarily about Tesla. Well, I mean, it is only about Tesla. That's the word. Exclusively. I don't think we talk exclusively about Tesla, but we do most of the time talk Tesla because that's most of the EV market. Let's see. It's going to be ridiculous seeing the acceleration of the semi. Unloaded, it can do 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, which is as fast as the Model 3. It's actually faster than the car I'm in right now. And it's a semi-truck, which is hilarious. Let's see. Mike says, Tesla likely has capacity to make 1 to 2 models quickly, hence quick delivery times for performance, and are filling out the rear-wheel drive. Trying to mass produce 2 types of Model 3 at the demand level they have to meet was too much. Yeah, I think they probably could accelerate rear-wheel drive delivery once they stop making long range. Let's see. 5K speed resolution, speedometer resolution, yeah. Lucid Air looks bad. Yeah, I agree. It looks great. That's just too expensive and not different enough. How many miles have I put on my Model 3? Good question, World Wonders. Let me check. I don't have the number on the top of my head. Let's go to software. 5,403 miles. So we're getting up there. It's getting higher. That's for sure. Let's see. The captain chairs on the Model X are so close to the Falcon doors. Feels a little crammed on the 6-seater. Yeah, I've heard people say that. I've not sat in the new one. But, yeah, I've noticed that the second row could have been... I don't like the 6-seater Model X. If I was getting a Model X, I would want the 7-seater because you can fold the third and second row down and then turn it into like a sleeping area, which you can't do with the 6-seater. The second row won't fold flat. And I would like the 6-seater more if it was more like the Gravity, where you had the reclining seats that fold all the way back and see. What I'm looking for in a car is, can I sleep in it? Because it's so insanely expensive, I have to sell my house to buy it. So it better have a good bed. That's what I'm looking for. And the second row on the Lucid Gravity looks like I could easily fall asleep in that thing. It looks very comfortable. Do you have the new Model 3 with the new softer suspension? I don't think so. I don't think I was in that wave, but I have no complaints with the suspension on my car. It glides. It's very smooth, and I'm quite happy with it. Compared to most other cars I've tried. Let's see. What do you think? Emergency pregnancy. That's not the word. Unplanned pregnancy, I guess you could say. This video was titled Semi-Event and spent more time on Lucid. I guess Oopsie's probably new here. In case you're new, the live streams are not intended to be hour and a half, 2 hour long discussions about one subject. I love doing live content. I've been doing live content for years. I love the real-time interaction with the audience, but I can't fit, because I don't know what we're going to talk about. You guys decide the subject. You guys decide the conversation. I can't fit all those subjects that we dive into in the thumbnail. So when it comes to live streams, that's why I put the word stream in the top left corner, so you know it's not an edited video. I also think the time code would be a giveaway, but when I ran a poll on it, everyone said they want stream to be listed in the thumbnail. So that's why I did it, is because that's what people asked me to do. I start out with a subject that's in the title and thumbnail, and I kick off the live stream with something, and I say, hey, here's some news, here's something I'm excited about or mad about, and then I talk for a little while, and then the chat kind of takes it away. The chat asks different questions and takes us to different subjects, and so the intention is not to talk about the semi-delivery event for 2 hours. That's not what I'm trying to do. It's not like have one subject and stick to that subject no matter what people bring up. It's here's what we're starting with, and then you guys ask away. Ask EV-related questions. Ask for or bring up EV thoughts you have, and I can disagree or agree with them. I haven't seen you in here before, so maybe you didn't know that, but that's the intention. What do you think Tesla might go over / release in the upcoming December event? Ooh, good question. My guess is they will dive into the interior. The layout of the displays, the safety measures they put in there, and also if Elon's there, which I think he said he would be, they're probably going to dive into how with full self-driving technology, these semis will beat rail in affordability, and that's going to be a hard one to do. But where they plan on building mega chargers, I hope they showcase the connector, what connector it charges with, what cells it uses, and the run rate. Those are things I want, but they're not necessarily things Tesla will go over. Tesla in their events tends to do a lot of recap, talk about how inefficient diesel semis are and how dangerous they are and how many emissions they cause and that kind of thing. So defending you spend too much time on Tesla thing. Oh, yeah, no, you're right. We spent most of this stream talking about... Did we spend most of it talking about Lucid? I guess maybe we did. It didn't feel like it was that long, but yeah, they'll probably go over the triple motor powertrain and give us some good graphs and talk about the acceleration again, which doesn't really matter. I would really like it if they would disclose the total weight of the tractor part, like unloaded with no payload. How much does the Tesla Semi weigh? Because that's going to directly impact the payload, which Elon and Zach Kirkhorn have both doubled down on this. That the Tesla Semi will have the same payload as diesel semis. They said it's not going to be limited by its weight, which that's everyone's biggest complaint with electric semi trucks, is they keep saying, oh, it can't be worth it because the weight of batteries is too high, therefore the payload is low. And it's like, that's not what Tesla's saying, and they're the ones making the thing. So are they lying? Or, what is the payload is vital, but I also I don't know if I would say vital, actually. I think the payload does impact the usefulness of it, but I've talked to several semi-truck drivers about this in my videos and that have come into the comment section and on Discord. And many of them have mentioned not every single semi-truck is running at max payload because they are often limited volumetrically, not by... They're limited by the space they have within the trailer, not necessarily by the weight of what the semi can tow. It's not like every single semi-truck on the road is at a gross 80,000 pounds. A lot of them, like, for instance, the first company taking delivery of Tesla semis is Pepsi, which is using them for their Frito-Lay facility. It's going to be moving around big pallets of chips in bags, which are mostly filled with air. That's kind of a joke, but also kind of true. Like, Frito-Lay's is going to be moving around big bags of air with a couple of chips in there. I don't think they're going to hit 80,000 pounds with the Tesla Semi, with the payload. There's a lot of trucks that are just like, how many pieces of cargo can we fit within this trailer? But that doesn't necessarily mean that every piece of cargo is going to be the heaviest thing possible. There's a lot of semis that are moving around things not at 80,000 pounds. Big bags of air, yeah. But they got to move it. They got to move it around. Um, did they ever confirm that the Semi has 4 Model S plaid motors? No, they came forward in the latest site refresh. I'll find it for you. I got tabs pulled up here anyway. Um, it doesn't have 4 motors. Here's the Semi. So they're still doubling down on under 2 kilowatt hours per mile of consumption, which is insanely good, especially for a vehicle this large. What's funny is this is very close to the efficiency of the Hummer EV. Yes, the crazy GM monstrosity that is the Hummer EV with a 250 kilowatt hour battery pack. In many circumstances in the battery tests I've seen, it's used 1 kilowatt hour per mile, depending on what you're doing. And this is getting around that same efficiency despite having a battery pack 4 times the size and a payload like, I don't know, 10 times as high. But yeah, it says down here, badass performance. 3 independent motors provide instant torque and unmatched power at any speed. So yeah, they went with 3 motors instead of 4. That was a production decision. I wonder if it's exactly the same powertrain layout as the Model S. They're just taking plaid powertrains from the Model S and popping the Semi on top of it. 'Cause engineering, right? That's how that works. Can Semi have 1865 batteries? It could. We haven't officially been told what cells it's using. We just all kind of assumed it's 2170 because that's mostly what they build at Giga Nevada, and that's where the Semis are being built, is Giga Nevada. So we assume it's 2170 cells because there's lots of those, and the 1865 cells are really good for fast acceleration and high performance, so they make a lot of sense on vehicles like the Model S and X, which are going for quickness and speed. The Semi, I think, is more of an emphasis on high energy density and range, not so much performance. So that's what makes me think they're going with 2170. Most people have said 2170. Coach says Elon said 2170s in the Semi. I don't recall him ever saying that. But tag me on Twitter with the proof, because I'm wrong a lot. Let's see. This might be a weird question, but does your Model 3 have the different motor than the older Model 3? The 2022 Model 3 rear-wheel drive does 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds, but the 2020 Model 3 rear-wheel drive, which I own, does it in 0 to 65.3. Yeah, they actually changed it even before that. So if you bought your Model 3 in 2020, I'm fairly certain you don't have lithium iron phosphate. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, or no, you took the message back. Maybe that's what you meant. Yes, but when they switched the 0 to 60 time to 5.8 seconds, they did go with a different motor. It was a less powerful motor, but it improved the total range. So when they first switched to lithium iron phosphate in the Model 3, the 0 to 60 time, I think, was 5.3 seconds, and the range was 262 miles. Then they switched it to a lower powered motor that used less energy, and the 0 to 60 time got worse to 5.8 seconds, but the range improved to 272 miles. That was a powertrain difference. I recall people talking about that because there was a channel I watched, I forget their name, but there was a channel I watched where he was like, I got one of the first LFP Model 3s, and then one of his friends bought the new LFP Model 3, the one I'm in, and they noticed that their cars weren't at the same acceleration. Okay, if you're 2020 Model 3 with no LFP, then you actually have a more energy efficient vehicle than I do because you're using 2170 cells, but it's a standard range battery pack. So they're very energy dense, they're very lightweight. They just didn't put in that big a battery pack. I think it's something around 50 kilowatt hours or 55 kilowatt hours. So your range is a bit worse because you're probably around 250 miles at 100%, but because it's 2170 cells and it's a nickel-based cathode, it degrades faster than LFP does, and you can't charge to 100% regularly, so your daily range is closer to like 180 or 190 miles of range. But because your vehicle is so light, you get better efficiency than I do, because LFP, while it has a high cycle life and I can charge to 100% every night, it weighs more because it's less energy dense. So that means that when they switched to LFP, the efficiency of the Model 3 actually took a little bit of a hit. They just decided that the range boost and the cost savings of LFP and the cycle life and the higher charge rate, 100% regularly was worth it over the weight and efficiency demise. Let's see. Am I the only one that worries about the potential of someone going postal in a Tesla Semi with instant torque and insane acceleration? It would be a very dangerous weapon on the road. I would argue that every semi truck on the road is a very dangerous weapon. There's already semi truck. It happened not too long ago. I think it was last year. Not too far from me, there was a diesel semi truck driver, because all the semi trucks are diesel now, other than a handful of Nikolas. But there was a guy on driving a giant semi truck with a huge payload that wasn't paying attention, probably texting or I don't know, doing something on his phone or driving drowsy, or he wasn't paying attention, and he plummeted into a bunch of stopped cars at a stoplight and killed 5 or 10 people or something. I know it was multiple fatalities. The Tesla Semi, I would argue, is safer because it at least has cameras and the full self-driving computer and a neural net. And these cars are very good at detecting when a collision is imminent. And they have regenerative braking as well as intensive brake pads. So I think that the Semi will be the Tesla Semi will be the safest Class 8 truck on the road, because it's gonna intervene or stop or probably have autopilot features, whereas most diesel semi trucks on I see them all the time whenever I go on the freeway. There's a lot of diesel semi trucks where I live, and they start not paying attention. They get distracted either by their phone or they're looking somewhere else or they're falling asleep, and they start slowly like steering off the road. Whereas if there's a drowsy Tesla semi driver with autopilot on, he's not going to do that. The car's just going to slow down if there's a car in front. The semi is going to slow down if there's a car in front of it, speed up if there's room, stay in between the lines, and if there's stopped cars ahead, it will brake, and it will beep at the driver and say, hey, pay attention. It will do far more. It will have far more safety features than traditional diesel semi trucks. Could someone go postal? Yes, but that can happen with any diesel truck, and that doesn't make it any safer that it's, carrying around giant diesel tanks that can explode on impact. I know that batteries can catch on fire, but I feel like the pack and the way they design the batteries in the semi is probably much harder for those cells to combust than it is just a spark to occur next to a diesel semi tank, which is very common. How in the heck is the Hummer 9,000 pounds? They need an Arnold commercial. Get to the Hummer. Yes. That's beautiful. I think the Hummer is a complete waste of time, personally. I think it's a very big waste of battery cells, and it's trying to make EVs approachable to people that don't like EVs, which, in my opinion, is a waste of time because we can't build enough EVs for the people that actually want them. So don't waste time trying to convince the people that want to buy, coal rollers that they should buy an EV. It's like, can't you just let those people be weird rather than make 9,000 pound behemoths that aren't very practical or aren't very useful? You're a shareholder of QuantumScape. Oh, interesting. Wonder who will come out with the first solid state battery pack. I'll believe it when I see it, but ultimately, solid state batteries have been talked about for years and years and years. I've been reading about that, I think, since I was in high school, which was a while ago, for the record. And it's always talk. Like, to me, all of that talk about solid state is trying to address a demand problem. That's ultimately what it is. You think that EVs aren't popular enough, or they're not selling a high enough volume because the range isn't as good or the charging speed isn't as where it needs to be. So you're convinced that we have a demand issue. I'm not convinced. I think Lucid has a demand issue, but ultimately, I think most people want to go electric. They just can't afford it, or they can't justify it yet because they're not in the right financial place in their life, but they're planning on eventually going electric. They're just waiting for the right circumstances to arise. And the more EVs we build, the cheaper you can sell them for. So to me, it's like that there's not something wrong with current EV battery chemistry that needs to be fixed in order for the transition to continue. We just need to figure out how many can you build. If you can build solid state batteries for EVs, but you only can build like 10 gigawatt hours of it a year, which is still insanely high compared to how many solid state batteries they build now, it wouldn't matter because you could only sell them in $100,000 vehicles because they're so limited in volume. And okay, cool, it recharges faster. The range is really great, which is nice, but uh, the people buying them are just going to be people that already own EVs. You're not going to be convincing more gas people to switch to electric by trying to sell another $100,000 EV with fast charging and high range. That's not what we need. We need higher volume, higher production capacity, and I'm sorry, that's just not what solid state is looking like with its strengths. It's not looking like it's going to be the type of vehicle to have much better not type of chemistry that's going to be much easier to mass produce. If anything, it seems like it's going to be much harder to mass produce. Um, let's see. A couple weeks ago, we had a gas station explode due to a drunk semi-driver plowing straight into the station. To my knowledge, that gas station is never reopening. Wow, that's terrible. I'm sorry to hear that, Alpha. The Tesla semi-cooks regularly get over 600 or even 700 miles of range since most payloads won't be near max. Wait, cooks? What are you talking about? Tesla semi, like, do you mean people that are testing it? Jacob always comes in here with all of this insider knowledge. I don't know if Jacob works for Tesla or something, but he always shows up and says, no, this is how FSD beta is going to go, and here's how much range they're getting on the semi. But he might work for Tesla. I don't know. He's been right before. He says autopilot and advanced safety features could be the second biggest Tesla semi selling point, first being insane fuel and maintenance cost savings. That alone, I think, is a great reason to go with the semi, because diesel is not cheap. And maintaining semi-trucks is not cheap either. So if you get rid of a transmission, get rid of oil changes, get rid of brake pad replacements, that's going to make the semi a heck of a lot more appealing to businesses. But I think it will be the safest semi-truck on the road. Did you see the video of the guy that destroyed his Hummer minutes after buying it? No, but I don't want to hear about it. It's a waste of time. I'm just going to get more and more mad at GM. Do you want me to be fair towards other EV brands? Then don't tell me all the bad things about the GM vehicles, because I already don't like them very much. I like the Bolt, though. They sell that at a loss, so that's a good deal. Solid state is the fusion of EV batteries. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. It's like it's always 5 years away, but it never changes. Do you think Tesla will surprise us with the Roadster at the delivery event, just like they did at the unveiling back in 2017? Ooh, that would be awesome. I would love that if it happened. Taper expectations. Don't go into it expecting that. I'm going to say no. This is just going to be a business-to-business transaction. Tesla will be delivering semi-trucks to Pepsi. Doesn't sound that exciting. If something were to come out of the back of the semi-truck, then okay, that would be kind of amazing, and my mind would be blown, and I'd be really excited. But let's not go into it expecting that. All right, let's just expect this to be a semi event. Why doesn't Tesla crack 400 miles of range in their standard models like other brands have? Not everyone cares about the tech in the car, but everyone cares about how far their car can take them. They need to remember they are a car first. I think you completely missed the point of EVs, Jasmine. First of all, Tesla's demand is off the charts. They can't build their vehicles fast enough. So you want the wait list to be even longer. Also, higher range means larger battery pack, which means higher price. So you think what the EV market needs is more higher price vehicles? If your demand is off the charts, then the desirability of your product is not the problem. That what's preventing EV adoption is production capacity, not we can't get enough people to buy Teslas. Clearly, they have plenty of people buying Teslas. That's not an issue to them. And who the heck are you referring to that other EV companies have figured out 400 miles of range in their standard models? Who? Who else? Lucid? Their cars cost $100,000. It's not anywhere close to what Teslas are charging for their standard models. If you're just saying that, I mean, Tesla could do that. They could just discontinue the Model 3 and Y. Boom. Now our standard model has over 400 miles of range. Model S long range. Yeah, and you also have a great infrastructure with the supercharging capability. So the need for high range isn't that important because most people want to stop after 300 plus miles of driving and use the restroom, take a break anyway. So if you've got a charger there to top you off, then having that extra range just means that you're less efficient for city driving, which is most driving. So if you're hauling around all those extra battery packs when you're just driving around town, you're spending more money, wasting more energy that you don't need to. We've kind of found this equilibrium point with EV range where there's a bunch of people willing to buy into EVs that are around 300. That's good enough for most people. More would be nice, but they're not willing to pay an infinite amount for it. That's why Lucid has a demand problem, is because they've found a way to make really high-range EVs, but no one's buying them. Everyone's canceling the reservations, and that's why Lucid's saying, if you order the Grand Touring, you'll get it right away, is because they built more Grand Tourings than they have reservations for, which is a problem. Jacob says, I don't work for Tesla. I just follow the right people on Twitter. You got to tell me where the right people are, man. I got to know where you find all this information. But it wouldn't surprise me to know that the Tesla Semi, when not fully loaded, can get over 600 miles, because they're saying 500 miles at max payload. That's insanely good. So if you didn't have all that weight hanging off the back of the truck, I'm sure 600, 700 miles is often possible. And people told me I was crazy for suggesting this, but I mentioned that the Tesla Semi, or semi-trucks in general, are often hauling lots of equipment and lots of cargo from a factory or from a supply chain to a supplier. They're not always bringing something back. Sometimes you're hauling a lot of equipment to one place, but now you just need to go back to the factory, but you're empty. And if you're empty, your range, your efficiency is going to be a heck of a lot better than it was when you were full. And some people are like, Drew, what are you talking about? Semi-trucks always running max payload. It's like, you don't always have something to bring to the factory. What the heck am I supposed to bring to the factory? Does that necessarily mean I can stop at the supplier's distribution network and bring supplies back to that factory? No, sometimes a semi-truck is just a designated route. Just like what Tesla, not Tesla semis, but semis that Tesla uses to deliver batteries from Giga Nevada, they ship them all to Fremont. They don't have a bunch of stuff at Fremont that they need to bring to Giga Nevada, at least not that much stuff that I'm aware of. A lot of the time you just bring the cargo back, and then you got to bring the semi-truck to where it started so it can bring another load. So you might get 250 miles of range. You might consume half the battery pack to bring the payload to its destination, but on the way back you're going to use a lot less energy because you're not moving as much weight. Let's see. I have the long-range Model 3, and I could definitely manage with less range. Supercharger network is key. I have the standard range Tesla. This is the Tesla with the worst amount of range, and I still think it's plenty. I could go with less. If they had a cheaper one with less range, I would have done it. The one thing I'll always regret not buying at the time it was available was the standard range Model Y, which was available in the U.S. for 1 month, and for the last 2 days, it was available. It was $40,000. Literally 16 grand less. I think or $15,000 less than the car I'm in right now. And it's a whole Model Y with the better ride height and the hatch. But the range would have been a lot worse. It was 244 miles of range, and it wasn't LFP. So I would have definitely had to stop more with that car. But if I had to trade to get the Model Y features, but my range is worse, I absolutely would have done it. You mentioned Apple buying Lucid, but don't the Saudis have more money? I'm not convinced they do. Apple has a lot of money. I don't know exactly how much the Saudis have. I don't know. That's a pretty big deciding factor. They kind of already own Lucid at this point, but the Saudis don't seem to have interest in buying out Lucid, but they've invested in them for a long time. Apple hasn't invested anything in Lucid as far as we're aware. But yeah, it would be great if the Saudis could invest in Aptera. That would be appreciated. They need it. My math says empty semi will go 730 miles. I think a lot of the time the semi will be empty, depending on what it's doing. I don't know if Mike caught the news, but Aptera said in an interview that they don't have the right... They're like lacking funding to start production. They need more investment before they can actually start building the vehicle. So I think they do need some more investment. But we were talking about that over in Aptera Owners Club. But I'm really hopeful that the Saudis will invest in them, or someone will scoop them up and get production going, because they have a real winner product on their hands. Because the Saudis have a lot of sun, right? They would appreciate a solar-powered vehicle. But with the efficiency and the affordability, it's just too good to pass up. So good, in fact, that I made a video on it that I just published. And we're going to wrap up the live stream now by pasting in the chat today's EV video. So I dropped the link there. Feel free to check it out if you want to watch my video on why I think the Aptera may be the cheapest car you can buy, new at least. And I'm going to sign off here, but there's lots of exciting EV videos to come. Stay tuned for more. Thank you all for watching. And special thanks, very special shout out to our enhanced and executive Patreon supporters, Joshua Vinnick, Matt S., and Alex Ding. Thank you guys for your extra mile of support. Enjoy. Can't Tesla kill Aptera? No, because they're too focused on the robotaxi vision. They're not going to make something better than the Aptera. So please, check out the latest video. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for the super chats. And I hope you have an excellent rest of your evening. Bye-bye.